Hey, game changers around the world. Welcome to another broadcast here on Primetime Game Changers. Matthew and Anthony here with you, and we've got a lot to talk about today. First of all, what went down in the Oval Office? And then also the joint of Congress just the other night. There's some wild stuff going on in this country right now, man.
Crazy stuff going on right now. We're calling this the throwdown in the Oval Office and the joint of Congress because that's really what it was. You had a heated exchange between President Zelensky, President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance got in the mix. And then you had in the joint Congress session, in the speech, you had Al Green interrupting President Trump multiple times and then having to basically be escorted out. So, there's a lot of speculation going around about Ukraine, a lot of people taking different sides. There's a whole lot of talk about, what is this all about?
Yeah.
And I think something that we like to bring is obviously a biblical perspective, but we also like to bring the element of this isn't just something that just randomly happened, right?
Yeah,
this is connected because seeds were sown decades ago.
Right.
And so now we're watching the fruit or the harvest of seeds that were sown from decades ago. So we have to go back to that trail and find out, okay, what were those seeds? Were those seeds of God? Were those seeds of a globalist agenda? Were those seeds rooted in were those seeds rooted in something a little more nefarious? And so those are the things we want to take a look at today. And I know we've got some different clips and articles to share, but, we really want to uncover how we got here because it's so easy on social media to just look at what happened, but there's no context. So then people just get emotionally involved and then they want to pick a side. Well, Trump was yelling mean things, and we need to support Ukraine. Well, hold on. We are supporting Ukraine as a country. There are innocent people involved.
Right.
But we're also supporting Russia, just like we're supporting China, because these are innocent people. But what we do want to address is leadership.
Yeah.
We want to be able to help you identify corrupt leadership versus leadership that is trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think, you know, when you look at it, there's a level of honor that's needed from
Yes.
some of these other countries that, you know, it's like, hey, America has been bending over backwards for you, really, and serving you.
And bankrolling your bill.
And bankrolling your bill. Yeah, that was my thing. It's like, okay, billions of dollars were sent to Zelensky. For all that money, you could have just rebuilt Ukraine, man. Honestly,
Yes.
you could have just rebuilt Ukraine as opposed to like, see, I think the whole reason, I mean, first of all, okay, we knew the throwdown was going to happen. And to our producers back there, see if they can maybe find that clip when Trump addressed Zelensky when he walked up to the Oval Office and he said something about, well, you're sure dressed well or something like that. You knew it was going to be bad from that moment. Like you knew
Right.
Trump was already like set off like, okay, you're coming in looking like you're like about to go to the gym, dude.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and you're at the Oval Office. And to me, you know, it just was crazy from the moment it started. Like you knew it was not going to be good.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say is it was nice seeing a vice president actually have Trump's back for once too.
Right.
I mean, JD Vance was no joke in there.
We didn't see that with Pence.
No, we did not. So, you know, I really got to say that was an incredible moment. But Tuesday, man, Congress, all of that was wild, but we had like some crazy snow too here that day, man. It was like a whole like I was just boxed in, man.
It
like
was a weird situation because it was what 65, probably 60 on Tuesday
Yeah,
mid morning by noon, and by 1 o'clock,
yes.
all of a sudden we started getting 50-mile-an-hour winds. The temperature drops like 40 degrees
Yeah.
in a matter of hours. So, and then it started raining.
Blizzard came after that.
So, but did you have like the inch thick ice? Because I had ice and then snow on top of it.
Yeah, and like you could not see outside. So I'm just like turn the fireplace on, watch the joint of Congress, and it was a doozy of a night, man.
Dude, it was like 100-mile-an-hour winds though. It was crazy what
Yeah.
happened.
So like Al Green was not the only crazy amount of wind going on, you know, when he walked.
Well, that's hot air. That's different than wind.
Yeah, that's different, right? It was just a lot of craziness going on that night. And my thought was, you know, I was talking with my parents about it, like obviously throughout the whole night. And, you know, even just we got to get into this too. The Democrats' refusal to stand up and honor DJ Daniel, like that was awesome.
Yeah.
That whole like thing that happened with him was awesome. And so the Democrats ought to be ashamed of themselves for not standing up.
Right.
And that was an awesome moment for you to actually look like a unified country. And you sat there when this kid has had, what was it, 13 brain surgeries they've had on this kid's brain.
Yep.
And
they didn't stand.
They didn't stand.
Also, when President Trump was calling for peace. Right?
Yeah.
He was calling for the end of the war in Ukraine. He was just calling for in general global peace. And they sat there, arms folded. And it was right then and there. I mean, we always knew the politicians that on the Democratic side were not okay in the head.
100%.
But to me, by not applauding the fact that we have people who are actually in leadership wanting there to be peace and they're wanting to be a resolution, and you just refuse to acknowledge it, that's next level in terms of your level of just being completely, I guess, disassociated with reality.
Yeah.
To be that demented. And I don't like to use that word, you know, but to me, there's something going on in your mind.
There's a problem
that is demonic and is evil in nature for you to not even be able to applaud the fact that our president is genuinely advocating for a resolution and a peace agreement.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. So, so before we get into some of this, we are excited that our shop is live right now
Yeah.
with some merchandise. Yeah, we are extremely happy. Yeah, like the cha-ching
Yeah.
sound. I love it.
Money.
So yeah, there's the Game Changer shop. Anthony, tell people about some of this stuff here. We got male, female clothes, all the stuff you'd want. I mean, we're going to be releasing more. We're even in the works right now of getting some baby clothes as well, or toddler, young children.
If you
We
can
want to
they
get
click
that
the
too.
shop button in real time? Okay, if you click the shop button, you'll actually see all of the merch when you
Yep.
scroll down that we have available. We actually have a few other pieces that I need to get added on there. So we'll have the hoodie that you have on. We'll have that
Yes.
up on the
Yes.
store so people can purchase that. You'll see our producer Jacob in a few minutes. He's got the same one on.
Yep.
So that same hoodie we'll have on the shop for you to be able to purchase, and it'll be shipped directly to you. Check it out, guys. This is not just something that Pastor Matt and I felt like, hey, we just want to build merch, but we believe these are seeds that when people put them on, it is a point of contact for the Spirit of God to literally invade their lives and reconnect them to their destiny, to launch them further. You're literally wearing the spirit of breakthrough when you put on Game Changers merch. So that's what we felt when we wanted to launch the shop. So there it is, available. We're going to have a lot of new merch drops coming, some different merch coming, baby clothes, more women's wear, all the fun things. So check that out. That's going to be at primetimegamechangers.com. You can click the shop button and you'll be able to access that.
Yep. And it's comfortable too. It's like real comfortable material. We've really made sure we've got top of the line comfortability for you guys. I mean, we don't want this to be something go to Walmart and pay $10 and it lasts maybe, half a year to a year. We want some good quality stuff for you guys to wear. And I think that's ultimately where we take pride in what we're doing and making sure that you guys are able to rep the brand wherever you go, whether it's class, whether it's work, the gym, at your home, events, family time, wherever it is, we want you guys to be able to do that. So check the site out. I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed. And we've got a lot more drops coming, I know, around the summertime here.
Yes.
We've listened to the female requests out there too. We've got that whole stuff for the females out there with the W inside of the GC for GC women. So we listened to your requests on that and we made sure we came through on that. So we're really excited. But Jacob, how was your week so far? And what did you think of kind of what's been going on the last 7 days? It's been a little crazy, I think, with the Oval Office and then Congress. But yeah, how's your week been, man?
We just got back from NRB, actually. If you guys were at NRB and you saw us, shout out to everybody that we ran into, everybody that we interviewed. Keep an eye out for those. We'll be posting those various places. We were wearing these, so if you saw us there. But we just got back from NRB. I actually got hit pretty hard coming back down. I landed with 103 fever. Feeling great now.
Wait, 103?
103. I for 4 days. I had 103 fever. So I feel great now, though. I'm way better. Healed in Jesus' name.
Terry, what was that like taking care of your husband? I mean, what was going on in the Blackburn home? 103?
I know. And then he left me to take care of the dogs. So it was me by myself and 2 dogs.
Yeah. Man.
But it was good.
So yeah, what were your guys' thoughts? Kind of, we'll start with the Zelensky thing. I mean, how did you feel, Jacob and Terry? We can start with you. Terry, how did you feel regarding the stuff that kind of went on with Zelensky? And then obviously we'll work into the Congress thing.
Okay, so the meeting with Zelensky, my first reaction when watching it was, where does he think that he is, Zelensky? Yeah. Like, you're in the Oval Office. You're in a different country. You've come into our country to ask us for help.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you're treating the president and the vice president and the secretary of state. That's how you're going to talk to them in front of our and then in front of our media. It wasn't even like this was behind closed doors and we're having this conversation. It was, no, I'm going to bring and make this show in front of the entire media and the whole public to try to embarrass you guys in your own country. And so that was my thought, was like, where does he think he is right now? Like, as Trump was saying, like, you don't have the cards, sir. You're coming to us for help because without us, you have nothing. Like, so that was my initial reaction.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty funny afterwards, after he like left, that he released that letter that he was like, hey, super sorry, I would love to sign that paperwork. My bad. I thought that I was still dealing with Biden. Did not realize that a real president was in now. So sorry. XOXO Zelensky. Like, have you guys read the letter? It's really funny. Like, he's super apologetic, and he's like, I would love to any day now. And like, whenever you guys are ready, I'd love to sign.
Yeah.
You know, for the minerals and everything. And he just like super walked back everything he said in the Oval Office. And it was like a day or two later, because he was just like, you know, we can't actually win this war without America's money.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I should be a little more humble.
It's funny. It's funny to me because you kind of want to be on the fly on the wall, because you know there was a phone call with Trump and Zelensky after that. I would love to know what was said. But when you mentioned win this war, you know, I like to be a little bit of a forensic scientist there.
Mm-hmm.
So why this war? And like, why did it start? Where is this coming from? And so those are the things I started thinking about again, because, you know, this has continued to be a thing. And obviously the media has turned it into their own thing, because, you know, the media loves to socially engineer us into thinking one thing. But what's the actual history behind this? How did this come up with being a war? And I know Jacob and Terry, you guys are well versed in the political side of this, so I would like to talk about this, because one of the big initiatives that's been tossed around is Ukraine wanting to gain membership into NATO.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of us who know, if you know, you know, NATO is interesting. So, Terry, your thoughts on NATO and their role, in the, well, I guess we could call it this, their desire to police the world.
Well, I think, well, just in your description of them kind of explains part of the issue of their desire to try to control everything.
Sorry, that was a leading question. Wasn't it? I'm sorry.
It was one of those questions that has the answer in it. Yeah. Like that's part of their issue, is that they're trying to essentially do this one world order sort of thing, where it's like, hey, here's this group that's come together and we want to be the end all be all that makes every decision, and we police the world and we decide what's right and wrong, and you know, we're kind of the ruling group of the world. And that doesn't work. Which you know, hopefully we would have seen by now, but clearly they still haven't figured that out completely, that this model does not work. Especially when most of your countries don't have any money. Because that was the other thing that Trump kept bringing up in their with his conversation with Zelensky. He was like, you're asking us for all this money, but we want to see other people giving money too. France, yeah, they're giving money, but it's way less than what we're giving them. Great Britain, they're giving money, but it's way less than what the United States is giving. And so, again, without the United States, you've got nothing. Everyone is depending on the United States to bankroll everything, and we can't do that at the expense of our own people. And so that's one of the things I loved about Trump and that conversation, was that he was so like, no, it's time for the United States to get back to focusing on the people again.
Yeah.
So, okay, so really quick. One of the questions I came up with, why this war, is, you know, we like to Google things because, you know, that's what Google's for. You find information instead of just take everything at face value. Jacob, this is interesting. We found on the Transparency International Corruption Perceptions Index, which is an index that measures the level of corruption in a country. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's the most widely used indicator of government corruption worldwide. Okay, so this is a generally accepted indicator. of how countries are run and what their level of corruptibility.
Yeah.
Ukraine ranks 105th out of 180 countries in the level on this index.
Nice.
So, Jacob, feel free to answer this. Why is the U.S. Congress and why has the U.S. Congress been giving this country over $195 billion in U.S. aid when it's at the bottom tier of how do we put this? Yeah, when they're at the bottom of when they're at the bottom tier of actually running government with integrity.
I think the main reason there is getting a little bit of feedback. I think the main thing there is their bank is run by. Good Lord. Hello, sound guy. How you doing? Their bank is actually run by George Soros. And so they're funneling money into Ukraine, and then he's taking that money back out, and then he's using it to pay for their campaigns.
You know what? I wasn't expecting that answer, but that makes sense.
Heavy.
That makes. I wasn't ready for that level of transparency right away. I had a script.
It's
right
kind
here.
of just a little triangle. It's really actually not. It's not even a big scheme. It's just like over, down, and then back over again.
You said triangle.
Yeah, it's just from
pyramid.
Congress to Ukraine, and then Ukraine to Soros, and then Soros right back into Congress.
Well, Jacob, now you just skipped through all of my notes, man.
I
wasn't expecting to be
apologize.
that direct. But fair enough. It makes sense, right? Because why? If they're ranked this low on the scale of government integrity and handling funds and operating and being transparent in what they're actually doing, yet we just keep sending them billions and billions and billions of dollars to
Not
this
millions.
billions.
Like you could rebuild your country with that kind of money.
Oh yeah.
And then people, and not to interrupt you, but people
No,
want
go
to
ahead.
say, oh, well, Russia started the war. And
we've got stuff for that.
So
let's go there. Let's go there.
In
please.
a way,
please.
Ukraine and America kind of started this issue because we were funneling in money. Hello, Joe Biden. Hello, Hunter Biden's laptop. So that whole, Russian dossier thing and the collusion in 2016 with Trump and Putin, that was just a big old scam to cover up what was going on. And so this whole thing, people saying Russia started the war and Putin invaded. Well, yeah, Putin's ticked off at what's going on for a good reason.
I'm so glad you went here because it's back on script.
Yeah.
Because I want to address what you just said, Matt. What you said, where people think that Russia started it.
Yes.
We actually, again, Google, we found a headline. Guys, can you please pull this up? It's the headline from 2022 from the Global Times, which talks about the CIA investing in the Azov militant group. While they pull that up, I just want to read this real quick. So we did some research on this because we don't want to just talk about what we saw in the Oval Office. There's stuff connected to this that we want to share with everybody. So check this out.
Got it.
We got it? Yeah, feel free to pull it up. Yes, this is big. So can you just hold it up there for a little bit? I want to share this because this is an actual excerpt from the article, but just to kind of set it up here to Matt's point. So we found that since 2014 to 2015, there is factual evidence that the CIA has been training a special forces military group in the Ukraine. It's called the Azov. So this is a neo-Nazi militant group called the Azov in Ukraine. So this is from this article. This is the excerpt I'm going to read. Ironically, despite being widely regarded as a threat to world security and enemy of human civilization, Azov Battalion was found to have ties not only with Ukraine authorities, but also with the U.S. After looking into the public information from the U.S. government and some investigative reports by Western journalists, the Global Times discovered that American politicians, military and intelligence officers were highly likely to have had cooperation with the Azov Battalion, check this out, in order to foster extremist forces in Eastern Europe against Russia. According to a Yahoo News article from January 2022, this is the same article that I'm reading, that they're scrolling from. The Central Intelligence Agency, for those who don't know, that's called the CIA. They have been secretly training forces for Ukraine since 2015. The CIA has been overseeing a secret intensive training program in the U.S. for elite Ukrainian special operations forces and other intelligence personnel. So listen to this. The Azov have been reported as being responsible for several violent uprisings in that region, including 2014, which led to President Yanukovych, which was the one before Zelensky, fleeing to Russia and eventually rising in the eventual rise to power of Zelensky. That's interesting. It has also been reported that the Azov were responsible for those really terrible riots in Hong Kong in 2019. I don't know if people remember that, but that was really bad. That was a really bad situation. So here's the interesting part about the Azov. They are members of this group. So the group that makes up the Azov are primarily from Russia and speak Russian. Kind of a convenient thing to do, because if the Azov terrorized Ukraine, the guys look Russian, so they can easily blame Putin for any war crimes. Wow. So interesting. We pull the CIA, goes over to Ukraine, hand selects people that look Russian, sound Russian, talk Russian, might be from Russia, bring them over to be part of this Ukrainian forces group. They are responsible for terrorist extremist activities, which is documented from 2015 all the way through 2019. They go quiet. And then after President Trump has the election taken from him, we have a war now. And it's because Russia has invaded Ukraine and all these things are happening. Interesting. Could it be? I'm just throwing this out there. Like you said, they're blaming Russia, but could this be kind of like a setup to where they made it look like it was Russia invading, but in reality, it was the CIA training guys to go and kill their own? Because these are guys that were Ukrainian citizens that they raised up to train to be this group that is based out of Ukraine. Now you've got this war against Russia, but these guys look Russian, they talk Russian. I find it very interesting, because this is the shadow government MO, right? We know this with the CIA. What happens when you find a country or an area of the world that's been kind of weakened? We go in there, it's known, the CIA goes in there, they raise up a opposing force or group to install a pro-Western, pro-US leader. So then we can go in and set up all of our nationalist corporations. And to your point, Jacob, the money gets funneled in US aid to this country. But then, interestingly enough, we don't know what happens to it, because the country may stay the same, but we find our politicians getting richer. Could that be the same thing that's been happening in Ukraine, but now they decided to just label Russia as the culprit and the justification for why we're sending this aid over there? Curious to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's been obvious, right, from the start. And, Terry, I think this is also why you go and see the whole Joe Biden pardoning right before he leaves Hunter Biden. What are your thoughts about that?
No, that's a good point. Did they see that some of the stuff was going to start coming out about maybe how they've been involved and maybe in some of the workings of what's going on with the CIA and what they've been doing in Ukraine, obviously with, Hunter being on that board, he was probably concerned, hey, this is probably coming out. What can I do to kind of cover myself and cover my family? Well, let's just do a blanket pardon and hope for the best and hope people don't start digging, which obviously we're doing.
But see, that's why you have to think, no wonder the Biden administration never tried to call for a deal the way Trump's administration is. Their thought process was, well, a deal, let's be honest here. Trump is trying to bring peace. They want a mess for Trump to have to step into in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay. But secondly, when they're organizing something behind closed doors with Ukraine, with Zelensky, all of that, of course they don't they have their own deals. Okay.
Right.
So they're not trying to have a peace deal in this regard because they're funneling in billions of dollars on another deal.
Yes.
So anything that Trump is trying to do with a peace deal ruins their plans.
You're right.
Yep. You're
So
right.
That makes sense. That would make sense then why they couldn't clap for
100%.
President Trump when he said that he's seeking a peace deal. Could it be that some of these people that didn't clap, are they on this bankroll that was initiated by the CIA to cause this disruption, to cause this upsetting of the balance, so that then we could justify going in there with aid? But in reality, what we're doing is we're setting up our own special interests. We're setting up our own corporations and siphoning that money back to the pockets of said people who don't want to clap.
Well, that's why the Democrats were clapping at that point when Trump said, "Do you want this to go on another 5 years?" And then he goes, "Pocahontas says
she was
yes."
clapping.
Yeah.
She clapped.
Pocahontas was. He goes, "Pocahontas says yes." Yeah, Elizabeth Warren was fuming at that point. I mean, it was.
Hey, Matt, speaking of Hunter Biden, can you guys bring this up? This is the headline about Biden and Yanukovych. I don't know if you guys can find it, but basically it was one of those that I titled under Biden's ties to Ukraine. It's NBC News is the headline article. But I just want to show something because, okay, you guys can show it. But again, to Matt's point, because he nailed it on the head, this is in the article that they're going to pull up. In May 2014, yeah, here we go. In May 2014, Hunter Biden took a board seat on Ukrainian natural gas company Burisma Holdings. He was reportedly paid $50,000 per month. For what? I'm not sure. Burisma Holdings had ties to Ukraine's previous president, Viktor Yanukovych, who was ousted from office. As Vice President Joe Biden was tasked with reducing corruption in Ukraine. That's funny. After Yanukovych eventually charged Yanukovych with mass killing of civilians. So Yanukovych was exiled to Crimea and amid threats of civil war. So here's the thing. The overlap between the vice president and his son raised concerns over a potential conflict of interest. Of course, at this time, this is 2014, so this is under the Obama administration. The Obama administration says there's no issue with Hunter Biden's work and there's no conflict of interest. Of course, he would say that, right? But check this out. In 2016, they're back at it. It says, with the support of other world leaders, Joe Biden threatened to withhold $1 billion of U.S. aid unless Ukraine's leaders fired the country's top prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, for being too soft on corruption. Here's the interesting thing. Before Shokin was fired, he had been conducting an investigation on Burisma Holdings, and Hunter Biden allegedly was a subject. But the investigation, interestingly enough, became inactive because Joe Biden pushed for this prosecutor's ouster. Hunter Biden stepped down from Burisma board seat in April 2019 because he knew his father, Joe Biden, was going to be making a bid, aka stealing the presidential campaign in 2020. Dude, you just said it. These are the ties right here.
Exactly what it is. And you know, here's the other thing. The exposure that's like going on in this country where like we're, you know, working to expose a lot of these lies and uncover stuff. You know, we'll see certain people say things, well, that's a threat to national security. You know, they've said the same thing with like, you know, trying to expose pedophiles. Like that's a threat to national security, you know, and they try to use that excuse. Like how in the world is that a threat to national security when you're exposing corruption?
Yeah.
Nobody was saying that when they were coming after Trump. Nobody was saying that with the 34 indictments against President Trump. What about that being national security threats? I mean, it's ridiculous, the hypocrisy, man, that goes on. And that's the thing that, you know, gets me. One thing that stood out to me too about the Oval Office thing, circling back to that, because I know we just talked a little bit about some of the stuff with the joint of Congress. If they have that clip ready with what Zelensky said to President Trump at the end, right before they stopped the meeting. And I love how Trump also mentioned to everybody that he's like, I'm kind of glad this is going on. He's like, you know, with the media being here because y'all can see like what we're dealing with.
Wow.
And because there was that point where he's like, you know, should we, I think, was it Vance or Rubio maybe asked Trump, should we like you want to do this elsewhere, or should we end this?
Oh yeah, close
And I
doors,
think Trump closed the doors, and Trump was just like, no, I like that this is going on. America needs to see this
transparency.
Wow. But here's the thing that stood out to me, and just this really bothered me, was the fact when Zelensky talked about the ocean and how you have an ocean that protects you so you don't feel anything, but one day you're going to feel it. Watch this clip, and you guys around the world, tell me what you think in the comments.
During the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling.
Yeah. First of all, it's just crazy to me when he says that to him. I mean, Trump with the perfect answer. First of all, you're not going to tell us what we're going to feel. Okay. You're not going to come into, Terry, to your point, you're not going to come into our country and tell us how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to feel. You were here in our Oval Office for a deal. You're not even dressed the part. And then you want to, first of all, does that sound like a threat to you guys? I mean, oh, you guys don't feel it, but one day you will. One day you'll feel it. You have an ocean protecting you, so you don't feel anything right now, but one day you're going to feel it. To me, that sounds like a direct threat. Doesn't sound like somebody who wants to make a peace deal to me. Jacob, what were your thoughts? You're a historic guy. You like, the history of wars and things that have gone on in the country, and going back to, history with Civil War and World War II. You're a historic guy like that. What was your thoughts in talking this out? If a general or a president or somebody says that to another nation, is that a threat?
I don't know that it's necessarily a threat from Ukraine, and more of a threat about Russia, because the kind of thought was, even if they get rid of us, right, eventually they're going to come for you. So you need to step up to save us, basically, is what he was saying. And so I didn't see it so much as like a threat of being like, we're going to get you, so much as like, they're going to get you because you've got to save us, which is, of course, ridiculous.
So it's an underlining between the gray lines threat. Either way, you're basically
it's like
speaking nonsense in another country.
Yeah, it's that they're threatening, like they're going to get you kind of thing. So it's kind of a
the manipulation in that.
Yeah, it's kind of a manipulation situation. Yeah.
To me, it's just something you don't say.
Right.
In front of another country, like
especially not in front of the press.
No, and to me it sounded like, oh, well, you all are the pretty boys. You haven't had any direct conflict in your nation from another country since Pearl Harbor. I mean, 9/11, but that was like within our grounds. People, I'm saying a direct like attack coming into our country. I'm pretty sure since like Pearl Harbor, correct? I mean, as far as war is concerned, I mean, obviously we've had people cross the border, terroristic attacks.
Sure.
We've had, the hijacking of airplanes, things like that. Right.
Sure.
But like to see what he's saying there about the ocean and all of that is just mind boggling to me. Like the fact that you're going to have the nerve and the audacity to even come in and say something like that. Just it left me like I had to rewind the broadcast for a second and be like, wait, did he just say what I thought he said?
Yeah.
Anthony, what were your thoughts?
I'm glad President Trump, made a push to just keep the cameras rolling.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, what Zelensky just showed is he's pretty much in it for himself and for his own self-image. And we have to remember why Trump got put back into office, which is part of God's original agenda, his redemptive plan, but it's about justice. We've had an injustice to the Ukrainian people. There's been an injustice to the Russian people because both of those countries have been just devastated by this. And I think a lot of that gets lost in all of this political back and forth rhetoric. And we've had an injustice against the American people because we've had our tax dollars stolen.
Yeah.
So veiled threat or not, or unveiled threat or passive aggressiveness, it doesn't matter. Zelensky's on dangerous ground right now because we're in a season right now where there is a demand for justice. And we're not talking about from our corrupt judges in our courts. We're talking about righteous justice.
Yeah.
And there comes a point where your mouth can write a check that you can't cash. And I think Zelensky's about there. And so I think he needs to be mindful of who he's talking to and where he's at.
Yeah.
Because I believe as prime minister, he was even calling for his impeachment, like the minute after that whole meeting was done. Right. So words and empty threats from man right now mean nothing, because we're dealing with a much higher authority.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I kind of feel for him. I'm like, dude, say what you want, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't matter, because God is going to have his way, and there's an injustice all the way around with everybody in all three countries involved, if you look at it. And so there has to be a balancing of scales. So the truth is going to come out, and it's really just better if he just gets on the side of bringing peace.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just allowing what everybody wants, well, most people want, which is to end this thing and move forward.
Well,
and do the right thing.
let's be honest. Come to the side of peace. You just said something key. Let's be honest here. Had it not been for the help of American aid, what Putin and Russia would do to Ukraine in the matter of literally probably less than 2 weeks, if not a week and a half, would be insanity. First of all, even Trump mentioned it. Even with the help of America, you still lost like 700,000 soldiers, Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay. You still lost 700,000 soldiers. So I personally love the fact that Trump let Zelensky go home without a deal, because Zelensky needs to think about it. That a little apology letter that you were talking about, Jacob. First of all, that's like one of those kids that cries that he got put in timeout and he just wants to make it right so he gets his privileges back or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not about like, oh, I'm really going to change. And then the moment, you buy in and believe that like the kid's actually telling the truth, like, what do? They go right back to like acting a fool, right? So, Trump said it on the White House lawn. No, he's not ready for a deal. So either he needs to sit and think about this, fight it out, or what some people were saying is, hey, you know what? We're going to probably see Zelensky just get voted or ruled out of office or in Ukraine, right? Here's the thing. Here's how you know too. He really did not have a heart change in his heart to where he wanted to apologize, and he wrote that garbage letter. Here's why. He was on special report with Bret Baier that night, okay?
Yeah.
And Bret Baier was pressing him how many times about apologizing, and Zelensky just kept going over the question. Bret Baier's like, okay, well, but you're not answering the question. Do you think you owe the American people and the president an apology? He kept just evading the question. So you now know that letter is a bunch of garbage, which Trump read perfectly into it. He's like, no, this guy's not ready for it. It reminds me of the same thing with Al Green, right? He walks out of, the rotunda and is in front of the press. And what does he say? He's like, oh, I'll accept any punishment that, comes to me and blah, blah, blah. It's all worth it. It was worth getting punished for this and getting thrown out because, Trump has no right to stand up there. And, you all heard what he was saying. It's that same little nonsense attitude that has no honor. And to be honest, we all know biblically, like when you don't honor, there's no blessing in that. Right.
Yeah.
And my thought is, no, he wasn't apologizing, Zelensky, at all. He was upset he did not get his way and had to go back to Ukraine and wants to blame America for that. First of all, it's also because you're not getting all those billions of dollars funneled into your country. And my thought was, if you really cared about peace, you would rebuild your country with the billions and billions and billions of dollars that the American people, literally this government, gave you. That was my thought. Terry, do you have anything on that?
No, I agree with everything that you just said. And I find it interesting. And I almost want to remind people too, probably part of the reason he ended up writing that letter anyway was because he probably got pressure from some other people in the government. Because you've got to remember, they were supposed to have elections last year.
Yeah.
And because he did martial law, they've essentially every 90 days keeps pushing back the timeline
You're
of
right.
like, oh, we'll move it here, and then oh nope, we're gonna move it another 90 days. Nope. So like we still haven't. So they still haven't had elections when they were supposed to have elections. So the people of Ukraine really have not had a chance to really voice whether or not they support Zelensky or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because they haven't been afforded the
Yeah.
right to have elections right now. And so I think that was probably part of the other reason that he felt that it probably was pressured to write that letter, is because he knows that he's on thin ice in his own country, because you have some unrest that's happening now from him not allowing elections to go on.
So,
Yeah.
Terry and Anthony, let me bring something back now to the Congress thing now. Let's shift for a minute. So, wasn't there this big organization just a few years ago in recent history called Black Lives Matter? Did that matter in the joint of Congress with DJ Daniel the other night? Ooh. When they refused to stand? I thought Black Lives mattered,
Jeez.
correct? What are your guys' thoughts about that?
Goodness.
Mm.
Well, similar to the Ponzi scheme that we're seeing with the foreign aid going to Ukraine, Black Lives Matter is the same thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
You come up with a really cool slogan. You hire some mercenaries to start a riot or some type of disruption, which we saw all during 2020, where there was all kinds of cities burning, even Black businesses. And people start giving to the cause because they see an injustice or a perceived injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And but you know, once the leadership or the heads of this cause get paid and get their money, then it kind of fizzles out. And so in my opinion, you haven't really heard anything about Black Lives Matter since what, 2022, Terry? It's been a couple years. And so now what you have, and the last I heard, it was left in a place, a state of just shambles, because there was so much infighting about who had the money, why they hadn't seen the money, these different chapters in different cities. You know, the whole point of the existence of Black Lives Matter just kind of disappeared, which is weird what happens when money gets involved.
Mm.
And so now you kind of fast forward and you see, you know, this young Black kid who's just been through it with his health, and he's being recognized for his bravery and just for his boldness and for his love for, get it, law and order, justice. Again, he's getting recognized for justice, his love of justice. Which side is not celebrating and applauding him?
Yeah.
Again, guys, it doesn't, you know, we can talk about the politics and who's on this, blah, 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 but you got to pay attention to what people are celebrating and what people are threatening. You've got one side that is celebrating justice, that is celebrating transparency, celebrating order, celebrating bringing things into a place of accountability, integrity. You got another side that is going like this. Anytime we talk about peace, justice, integrity and transparency, saving money that the government is wasting. Oh boy, we got some boos on that one, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
So, Matt, I think it's all in the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You're just seeing the true colors of what these Marxist, that's what it is,
Yes.
Marxist organizations stand for. They stand for disorder. They stand for lawlessness. They stand for rebelliousness. And they stand, most importantly, for the complete and absolute destruction of the fabric of America. And they don't actually care about you.
100%. I think, you know, when you look at it, my thought process was, this is a child. This is still a young kid. And just shows you the level of, they don't care about the kids. They've already been doing this.
If they don't care about the unborn, why would they care about a kid that is
100%.
outside the womb?
Yes.
They've already shown that. If you don't
Correct.
care about life in the womb, you definitely aren't going to care about someone who's outside the womb.
Say it.
And I want to say this real quick. So we talk about this. People have this still having this debate. I remember we were kind of getting some funny looks because like, we should be anti-abortion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, don't you? No, there needs to be anti-abortion. Do you know why? Jeremiah 1:5 actually says, before you were formed in your mother's womb. So where does conception and life actually begin? Before the womb. Before you have a purpose. You're assigned a destiny before your mother's womb. So that should settle the debate if you're a Christian, if you're a true believer.
Amen.
that life doesn't just begin in the womb, it begins before, when God says. And so, it just shows again.
We actually have a clip of and that's really good. I agree 100%, because how many times have we said that on this show about if Black lives were mattering? Well, then why is it that Black babies are most?
They're 33% of all abortions, but we
Correct.
represent 12% of the population. Why is that happening?
Correct. And what did we say earlier in the show about hypocrisy and this movement of hypocrisy, man? It's just it's crazy to me. But yeah, we have a clip here we want to play that they're letting me know about with DJ Daniel. Let's roll that clip.
Asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
Yeah, so that's just an
So cute.
amazing moment. And actually, the guy that he hugged, I don't know if many people know this, is the director of Secret Service, Sean Curran. And he was actually the guy next to President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, when the shooting happened.
Oh,
He's the
wow.
director of Secret Service, the
Wow.
guy he hugged. Yeah, look it up. Sean
Wow.
Curran is his name.
Mm.
You can find interviews of him talking about the Butler, Pennsylvania stuff. But that was the director of Secret Service that was actually standing there next to DJ Daniel when that happened. And I really loved the videos that were coming out about DJ Daniel. Did you see all the stuff about kids used to make fun of him and stuff with his outfit and stuff? And then here he is getting honored by President Trump. Like, people were making fun of him, like friend groups and things like that, school classmates or something like that, making fun of this kid. But then his interview too, I love what he said. I don't know how many of you heard this, where he was talking about, he goes, I got a message to the Democrats out there. If you're mean to President Trump, I'm on your bumper. Did y'all hear that? It was the funniest thing ever. He goes, I'm on your bumper.
That's great.
And
Awesome.
yeah, then he's getting interviewed by like some woman, and the woman like reaches her hand out, and he shakes DJ shakes her hand, and he goes, oh my gosh. He goes, this might, I think that's the first time I've ever shook a woman's hand. That's crazy. He's just the coolest kid. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah, you guys got to watch it. But no, he goes, I'm on your bumper. If you're mean to President Trump, he goes, I'm gonna be on your bumper. So he was just, it was just awesome. But no, I think it was a special moment personally, like for that to happen. And again, the honor and justice that you were talking about is what makes those things happen,
Yes.
man. So, I personally, that was one of the greatest moments of the night. And then, I love how the cameras were not showing the Democrats when they were talking about those that crossed the border, the Lincoln Riley, all that stuff. Because
Yeah.
I was like, I would have loved to see that section of the room just to see, are you going to stand up now? Because it was your open border
Right.
that caused these families, their loved ones' lives. Let's just call it what it is, right?
Yeah.
They didn't show at all when they were honoring the family members, the mothers, things like that. Even the volleyball, I forget what's her name, the volleyball player that was there, that he honored in front of everybody, was another piece in this. And that was the volleyball player that didn't she lose sight or like and movement, right? She like
was partially paralyzed.
yeah. It's just crazy. Like, that was the San Jose State thing, correct? Am I right in that?
Yeah, because that was the story about how they faced a team that had a transgender. Well,
Peyton McNabb.
Peyton McNabb.
Yeah.
They faced the other team that had a man who was playing, and he spiked the ball into her face, basically, and it damaged part of her vision. And then, she's kind of paralyzed on one side or has slight paralysis. But I mean, again, it goes to just, this is what happens when we don't follow God's way.
Yeah.
There are people who are innocent that end up getting hurt. There's things that end up happening that are severe consequences that unfortunately our politicians, have kind of absolved themselves from. That's the issue right now that I love that President Trump and Doge are basically confronting, is that when you have a big government and you have all of these politicians who are not rooted in any sense of reality, they can make these flippant decisions that affect millions of lives, but then they don't have to answer to or deal with any of the consequences or repercussions. They can just come up with these ideologies and these these great ideas, or that they think are great ideas, in a vacuum, and then just kind of walk away and keep collecting their check. So, Jacob, I have a question for you. As citizens who are now informed and more awake than ever, I'm not saying not woke, more awake than ever, awakened to what's actually happening. How do we prevent this from going forward? Because you can still see the swamp has to still get drained, because there's still an entire other side of Congress that is just completely blinded by, well, I'll just call it satanic agendas.
Yeah.
So how do we root out the rest of this, and how do we prevent this from happening going forward?
Well, obviously a big part is to support President Trump and to support Elon Musk, because they continue to do that carving and tearing from the inside. The other thing is to keep an eye on your political years. And one kind of big thing, because we've been talking about justice a bunch, one kind of big thing to keep an eye on is justice is justice. If you have to add a qualifier, it's no longer justice.
It's perverted, yes.
So anybody who adds a qualifier is perverting justice. Anybody who's like, oh, what about social justice? What about racial justice? What about economic justice?
Yeah,
that's
good.
If
you have to add a qualifier, it's
that's
not
really
justice,
good.
because
That's good.
justice is justice, and it doesn't
like we're
care.
adding a justifier to justice.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's so,
because actual
dude.
justice applies to economics, it applies to race, and it applies to the social life, because justice is justice. If you have to add something to it, then now you're standing for something else, because actual justice will punish the wicked and spare the innocent. Any other kind of justice will target the innocent, because its goal is not justice. Social justice will target innocent people, because the goal is not justice. It's a social change. Racial justice will target innocent people, because the goal is not justice. The goal is racial, whatever they're trying to accomplish. The same thing with economic justice. If they add anything to it, and that's just something to keep, and that's an easy one. Keep an eye on that. Any politician who talks about any kind of justice outside of justice is actively perverting the very thing that they're talking about.
That's really good.
That's good.
That actually reminded me of something that Pastor Hank's been hitting on a lot lately, which is, when Israel was delivered from the Egyptians, Moses didn't have to go to Pharaoh and say, give me social justice. We demand economic justice. No, when God said, I am delivering you, it was a complete and full deliverance. There was complete justice. That nation of Israel was delivered in all aspects, and they prospered. And there was nothing left. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Egyptian army was the greatest world power at that time.
Yes.
They never even came close to becoming a world power after that again, right?
Yeah. I mean, Egypt throughout kind of all of the Bronze Age and a lot of the kind of antiquities and ancients always had an impressive army. And the reason for that was because they lived on the Nile. And so they always had enough food to kind of support themselves. But that was kind of the moment, they're kind of around with Ramses, was when they were the superpower. And it was after this point that they kind of became a superpower.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, it's the Egyptians. And then it was like, oh, it's the Egyptians and the Babylonians and the Assyrians and, and the Persians and the Greeks. And they just kind of stopped being the power in the region after that point, because their economics got blown up because they lost other slaves, or at least they lost half their slaves probably. But then they also, they lost all their army, right? They lost their pharaoh. They lost their pharaoh's firstborn, who were,
that's
both
during the plague.
basically at the same time, which their pharaoh, they considered him a god.
Yeah.
Which, in one of the ways that they actually pulled that off was on the throne, they had little ice blocks right here on the throne, so that the pharaoh could sit in the sun and not sweat, because this is what regulates the sweat throughout your body. And so people were like, oh, look how divine he is. And which is why, he kept on getting hammered by actual God. But they lost him, and they lost the next one. So they lost two of what they would have considered divines. And so they lost. So that's their military power, their
Yeah.
economic power, and their religious power all got shattered in one go.
That's
Well,
justice.
and on top of that, the water with turning the water to blood,
Yeah.
the crops, all
Yeah,
that stuff.
Yeah.
It all targets specific
All those
Egyptian
plagues.
gods.
Goodness, that's heavy.
That's justice.
Yeah.
That's justice. That's God's justice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man.
work it out amongst yourself, Christians. Don't get God involved.
Ooh.
God's justice looks crazy.
Yeah. That's a word right there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. So speaking of justice, I actually was reading through my tens of pages that I have of notes because I didn't know where we're gonna go. There's so much packed in this. Again, it's easy to get caught up in Zelensky and Trump in the Oval Office, but there's so much baggage to this relationship between Ukraine, Russia,
Yeah.
and the US. There is something that I found that was really interesting. I don't know if I can find the actual article link. I don't know if I'll have it, but I'll just kind of read what I have. But this was an article that I found according to The Independent, and this was online. But there was a quote on here that said, this is from 1949. So I guess they went back in the archives and were researching NATO.
We got it. We got the article actually.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. When it was first formed in 1949, this is an executive, so a top person in the Communist Party of Russia. This is what he said when NATO was formed shortly after the World War.
Mhm.
NATO is not a pact for peace,
Ooh.
but a pact for war. It is openly directed to the aim of building up a war front against the socialist Soviet Union and the people's democracies of Eastern Europe. What? You had a leader in the communist regime of Soviet Russia saying that NATO is a threat to the democracies of other countries. Guys, how bad, Terry, how bad is NATO if you have a communist leader saying NATO is going to threaten the democracies of Eastern Europe? And it's kind of hard to discount what this guy said, because if you look at all of the Eastern European countries that joined NATO since that time frame, kind of makes you do head tilt. But I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on this? You good, Jacob?
I'm good.
You need some water?
I'm good.
He's recovering in Jesus' name. Terry, what are your thoughts on this? Because this is probably the craziest quote I've read in a while.
I think that should really bring up some red flags as far as, again, to the intentions. The intentions of this organization, which I kind of touched on again anyway, was just the thought of, like, let's bring together just these specific countries, and then let's try to be the ruling organization over the world, and then we'll decide what's right, what's wrong, who's the enemy, who's okay and to be an ally, and then we're gonna be the rulers of the world, for a lack of a better term.
Global justice.
Global justice. And it's like, if that doesn't say alarm bells, red flags, like, I don't, because it's one of those, one, who picked these people?
Mhm.
Can we talk about that? Like, how did we decide that this group, yep, you guys are the ones, they're self-appointed. They're like, you know what? We have the right idea. We know exactly how every country in the world should be run and how the world should be run
Yeah.
and should be functioning. And so therefore we should be leading it and making all the decisions.
Well,
What?
To be fair, the kind of big three countries are Britain, France, and Germany, who have all, well, at one time or another decided independently that they knew better than everybody else and they were going to take over.
That's
Now
true.
they all just kind of got together and like, all right, well, I guess we can do it as a group now.
on America's bankroll.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the US at one point was paying for 22% of the NATO budget while everyone else was in the single digits. So, but that's another topic. It's just interesting though, Matt, because there's man's way and then there's God's way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think this is what, not I think, but it's interesting. We keep running into these intersections and these crossroads in history of the world, where man tries to do what they think
Yeah,
is right
yeah.
in their mind. They mess things up. So then God's like, okay, I got to intervene and bring a savior. Look at Judges. The entire book of Judges is about this very thing. Israel continued to try to do what they thought was right in their own sight. They get into a mess. They ask God for help. God brings a deliverer. They don't like the deliverer. so after they get set free, they go right back to doing what they're doing. How do we avoid that mistake that was happening then? Because God raised up a deliverer in President Trump. Say what you want. No, we're not comparing him to Jesus. You need to understand what we're saying.
Yeah.
God raised up the deliverer in President Trump. And he is in process of doing the exact same thing that Moses did, the exact same thing that a King David did, the exact same thing, that some of these other, Deborah did for the ladies, like a Deborah did, a Shamgar, who was actually not even Israeli. He wasn't even Jewish. So God had to go outside of the camp to bring somebody in to prove a point. I will use whoever I use and choose who I choose to save my people. But Matt, how do we get out of this cycle of hating on the people that God chooses to save us?
Well, I think people need to get out of their own flesh and start getting in the spirit. Like, stop thinking of things through your soul and start actually getting in your prayer closet and finding out ways to undergird the leadership that God has put in. I feel like if you're close to God and you're spending time with him, it should be pretty obvious who is corrupt and who is not. I mean, realistically, because here's the thing, right? We could have all these great ideas, thoughts, things that we think we could do better. It's like, well, wait a second. Why don't you then go up there and try to step into the Oval Office and swear into office and see how you could lead this country, with the millions of issues that the previous administrations, I'm going way back now. I'm going all the way back to the Bushes, the Obamas, the Clintons. I mean, I'm just going back at this point. This has been going on for far too long. And it's starting to come out now, waiting on a lot of these files to be released. But here's my thought, we have to stop thinking with all these ideas that produce nothing and start getting our ideas from the Holy Spirit, from God and in prayer, because, here's the thing, man, how many people came under President Trump, rhinos, I'm talking to you now, that looked the part, looked great, had all these bright ideas, and then completely backstabbed when the call of action of being bold came about, and they fled, or they just turned completely turned. My saying is, it's like having a Ferrari or a Lamborghini in your garage that can't go above 60 miles an hour. What's the purpose of that? It could be the nicest looking car, perfect color, paint, wrap, whatever, stripes, lights, all this stuff, right? The coolest rims, like everything that you'd want. It's got a stereo in there, nice seats inside. But if it doesn't go over 60 miles an hour, what's the purpose of that Lamborghini? You're going to get dusted by a mommy vehicle on the interstate. Let's just call it what it is, right? And I think too much we've gotten to this notion of like, we're so concerned about having these ideas, like these what ideas, that we forget the how. And the how is, how does it fit in? So like, let's say for instance, okay, person may have this great amount of furniture that they want to give away to some people, right? Or bless people with, or they have like a store or a furniture store or whatever. You could have the nicest furniture and all this stuff in the world, nice couch, all this stuff to bless somebody with, but the people receiving it, they still have to figure out like, okay, we know what the what is. It's a nice couch. Yeah. But the how is, how does it fit into our home? It could be a really nice couch, but does it even fit in our living room from a logistics standpoint, a measurement standpoint? Or, okay, hey, this color of the couch, it's so nice, but our living room looks different. So therefore the how is, maybe we have to change up how our living room looks, the paint, some of the accessories, decorations. Come on, Terry, you're a female. You know what I'm saying? How do we, the how is, how do we incorporate this really nice couch? The what is, oh, nice couch, nice furniture. But the how is, how does it fit into the general box of what we're trying to accomplish? And I think people forget the how because they're so focused on the what.
Right.
And it's like the what is, oh, really cool looking Lamborghini here and or Ferrari. But the how is, well, how fast does it go?
Mhm.
How does this work? Could I drive this? You know, the things like that. And so we always are looking at everything from the outside perspective for so long. I mean, that was America, right? Just looking at the what. Oh, what's the media saying? What's the media saying? What's the media saying? Now it's how is this fitting into America in my life? Now it's like it used to be we would just go to the media. What are they saying? What's the media saying? What's CNN saying? What's Fox News saying? What's all this saying? And then we realized for how long we were absolutely being ambushed and bombarded with fake news that now we're having to ask the question of how did we get here and how do we fix this?
That's good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude. And so the part about the picking out the furniture and then it making sure it fits within the house or the layout of the home, we're seeing a lot of that right now with this polarization of socialism, people demanding communism ideologies and economic principles to be infused and added into the fabric of America. And it's like, well, hang on. Do you actually know what the fabric of America was designed to be? It's like when you try to build like this 1,000-piece cradle set. How about this? My brother's in the back with the audio, so he understands this. Like the cradles, baby cradles and baby beds are like the hardest thing to have to like assemble because it's like thousands of pieces. I don't even understand why. But you have to read the instructions if you want to build it correctly, according to the original manufacturer's design. But what we've seen, especially in this nation, is a lot of representatives, public officials, lobbyists. We've even seen, even at the academic level, a lot of teachers and professors who have not followed the instructions of the original intent and design of how this nation was formed. Mm-hmm. And that is a dangerous place to be when you have judges who are ruling not according to the fabric and design of the original intent, but are ruling based off of what they think personally or their idea. Yeah. Also, we have an issue with how, with even our administration previously, choosing to administrate or even determine that they are in office outside of the way the original intent and fabric of this nation was established.
So, Terry, how does that even happen? Like, how in the world does that even become a thing where they're, sitting there saying what you just described, Anthony, about, determining that they're in office and this, that, and the other, and, dressing it up and blah, 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 blah. I mean, you're, in that field of the political world. So touch on that.
I think a lot of times that happens too, because people get a little bit, I think we get a little lackadaisical. We kind of get lax and we're not paying attention as much.
Yeah.
And so we're not holding the people accountable that we should be holding accountable. I think sometimes things like that can almost slip through the cracks, but in plain sight because we're not paying attention and because we're so focused on other things that are less important instead of what's actually going on right in front of us that we should be paying attention to and holding people accountable for. So I think part of that, one of the, when we see things like that happen, it's because, hey, we the people, because again, that's how this country was founded. Correct. With the intent and the thought that the people would be actively involved in government and how it's functioning and how it's running. We the people need to step into that role and actually become active and engaged in what's going on in our country, no matter what level it is, whether it's federal with the president, whether it's at the state level, whether it's local level with like city council and school boards. We have to get involved because then otherwise, without the accountability and the check of the people, that's where we start to see some of these things
and I
happen.
think the people want answers now
on
a lot of things. The people want answers on, okay, where was this money going and what was the purpose with the Ukraine thing?
Yes.
Because let's be honest,
$200 billion.
right?
It's a lot of money.
So let's be honest. I guarantee you, had Trump said to Zelensky, "Oh, we're going to continue to give you more money," Zelensky would want this war to continue for another 3 years.
He would.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it's all about the money. It's all about how is this benefiting him. He
Yeah.
does not care about his own people whatsoever.
So can I go back to something really
Yeah,
quick? Because you're right.
please.
Terry, you said something about people being distracted or
Mhm.
falling asleep. So there was something interesting that the Romans would do when they were trying to fight for democracy to be back, but then there were certain Caesars that wanted to just retain power. Guess what they would do? They would have games.
Mhm.
Colosseum,
Yep.
45 days of games, distract the people.
Yep.
60 days of games, 120 days of games, distract the people.
Yep.
And so this thing of entertainment being an ultimate distraction for people. And if you look at America, I mean, we are the capital of entertainment. And so you start to wonder, what was the purpose of said entertainment?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because of how Zelensky, being an actor in the genre of entertainment and how he portrayed this situation, could it be that rather than getting people to start asking those questions like
Yeah.
Matt just said about where's this money going, what's the purpose for it, who do you actually care about, to now feeding into the entertainment spectacle piece of it, because it's distracting
Yeah.
from the actual thought process of, wait a second, who's holding this man accountable?
Right.
Where is that money that you said you cannot account for?
Mhm.
Right.
So now we're sitting here having discussions about how much of a spectacle it was without even batting an eye about the fact that we've spent $200 billion with this nation. Nothing has progressed. In fact, it's gotten worse. And talking about why are our politicians and those who represent us, why have they not been doing their job? So could it be, again, that this age-old tactic of using entertainment, look over here, a squirrel,
Yeah.
to mess with the people's mindsets? Is this happening again?
I feel like it is.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, one of the other things, especially when you start talking about the federal government, I see this more often than not,
Oh, yeah.
is that the numbers get so big that it's even hard to comprehend.
Sure.
Right.
To really understand how much money that's
Yeah.
being sent to
Oh.
another country and you don't know
Yeah.
where it's going.
Yeah.
Or it's also the thought of, well, I don't understand the complexity of all of the things of where the money's going and how it's being spent and why not it shouldn't go this place. And so it's like, oh, well, that seems too hard and too confusing to try to understand, so I'm just going to totally disengage.
Yeah.
And that's the opposite of what we should be doing. We should actually become more engaged to understand what exactly is happening, because again, at the end of the day, any money that is being spent by our government, that is your money.
Yeah.
The government has no money. That is
Yeah.
all taxpayer dollars. That comes from you. So you should be, how like people will get, I think about this when we first got married, and it was like every time that there was like $100 that was gone, it was like, where'd that go? What did you spend that on? You know how like in your own personal
Yeah.
budget,
Yeah.
you are on top of every
Yes.
single dollar.
Yeah.
We should be like that with the federal government. Hey, I'm sending X amount of dollars every year for taxes.
That's good.
Where is that going?
Yeah. What are you doing with that?
Because I know I could use that.
Right.
Okay, Jacob. So to Terry's point there, why are judges then blocking some of these initiatives where Trump is asking to shut down some of these organizations, because we can't account for why that's even happening or why that money is being spent there?
Sure. Well, and some of that is because, well, it's that same kind of triangle situation we had before. A lot of that money is getting funneled back into either those judges or their party or their supporters, into their family or any kind of number of other places. The money is just kind of is circulating back into their interests, whatever those interests might be, whether it's, circling back into the actual Democratic Party or any of those other places it could have been going. That's the biggest reason that anyone could the only reason anyone would ever want to oppose corruption is if they are benefiting from the corruption.
Yeah.
Because what corruption does is it steals from some people and it gives to other people.
Yeah.
So if anybody's like, no, we should not, fix the corruption, that immediately tells you what side of that line that they're on. Because if you're the one getting stolen from, you want the corruption to stop. If you're the one getting all the money, then you don't want the corruption to stop because you're the one stealing. It's like it's a two-sided subject. It really doesn't get much more complicated. It's just, and that's kind of, again, one of those things. All you have to look at is just what side of the line are you on? Because if you think the corruption should continue, then you're one of the people stealing, and if you think the corruption should stop, you're one of the people getting robbed. And I think the corruption should stop, personally speaking. But
that's good, man. Because what we're seeing, Matt, is we're seeing some of these headlines popping up about U.S. district judge blocking President Trump's bid to shut down a federal agency that is sending money to Africa.
Yeah.
First off, how does a U.S. district judge even have that jurisdiction or authority to say so? Then you've got another one where they blocked President Trump's attempt to kind of put a freeze on the U.S. aid. One, so they could just figure out, where is this money going? You don't fix a leaking faucet by turning the water on more.
Yeah.
Right.
You stop it, find the leak, and then you plug the leak, and then you turn the water back on.
Yeah.
Right.
But these judges just seem, it's not heaven bent, so they're hell bent on continuing to spend our money. But I'm just trying to figure out, where is the audacity to say that you have this jurisdiction to say, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm tired of seeing this, where the minute there's some good happening, there is someone somewhere who's like, no, you can't do that. And it's appalling and it's upsetting, but at the same time, to Terry's point, you have to start to wonder, well, how much of this did we allow by simply sitting back and just saying, oh, they've got our best interest at hand?
Well, that, and I also think we believed the news for so long.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think they dressed it up in a way where it looked pure and innocent, and then we realized like we were just being fed a mouthful of lies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's real.
I think we over trusted the news for a long time. And I think that begs the question of, how long have they really been getting away with this and lying? And I think obviously there's been a lot of hush money going on for sure in a lot of places.
Oh, yeah.
America, other countries, etc. Right. And they're paying off people, but I do believe more whistleblowers and stuff are going to come out where people are just going to be like 100% speaking out on the truth and saying like, okay, you know what? I have to speak about this because I've seen what's going on. I've seen the corruption, that kind of stuff. But, personally, my challenge to our viewers would be to continue to pray and use your voice.
Amen.
And don't be silent in these times. I want to encourage those that are subscribed on Hank and Brenda YouTube. Go to us, go to the Primetime Gamechangers YouTube, subscribe, because we're going to be putting out a lot of different videos, a lot of different things to really just educate people in these times. Not just our generation, Anthony and Jacob and Terry, but other generations, and really trying to bring a uniting together.
That's good.
Because we need all generations united right now, 100%. And so, want to remind those people watching, you can subscribe, Primetime Gamechangers YouTube. Check us out also on Facebook, the Instagram page, Primetime Gamechangers. And then we're also happy for the partnership we have with pray.com, where we can put content out around the world. So shout out to you guys. Putting our show on your network and everything. We're blessed by that. And because I think why I'm saying all this is people need real truthful news now, man, and real truthful shows and things to listen to, because let's be honest, I think because of fake news, broadcast TV is dying, y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
100%.
Like, technology has grown to a whole nother level now. And then on top of that, like, I think really what started to take over, well, first of all, streaming, whatever that is, streaming TV, but like podcast, YouTube, Facebook, website networks, things like that. People are streaming stuff now. They're paying that $10 subscription for, something like ESPN Plus to like watch sports, as opposed to like sitting at home all day and watching their television. People are listening to radio. Radio is a huge thing too. It's still, that's never really died, to be honest. Radio, I think people still listen to that, whether it's on their phone pulling up a radio station or their vehicle. But that's the thing, man. And we need like podcasts and radio to start taking over with real factual news now. And I think blogs, that's another thing. Blogs and articles, man.
Good.
We got to reset the market on this, or reset the value of what people are listening to and watching and looking at, man, and reading. Because it's like, okay, if they can't get you on TV, then they're going to just get you with some bogus news article headline just to get clicks.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many times do you click on like an article and it's like, wait, this happened? And then you like read the first, not even first paragraph, and you realize it doesn't even match the title.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
You know,
From like
the
5
headline,
years
you
ago.
know,
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. So, you know, I think we need to start resetting things in culture now. And we need to bring like factual stuff out there, because we've been lied to for so long that I think America just thought, oh, that we don't have lies in this country. We don't have a corrupt government. We don't have, it's always been a nation of democracy. There's no, you know, socialism, Marxism, communism that's coming here. Like, not in America. When actually, yeah, they were trying to get rid of capitalism.
Yes.
100%. So they were trying to get rid of democracy. I mean, go just look at what's been going on. I mean, even, and I think it'll start to educate people when these files come out, especially those 9/11 files, about how our government has been corrupt for a very long time, and even had their hand in the cookie jar with a lot of these things, or could have prevented these things. I mean, how long were they warned about Osama bin Laden and just sat on their hands and did nothing?
Well, Osama bin Laden was a CIA asset for a little bit, so
Exactly.
that's a whole nother topic for another day.
They were warned at the end of the day, though. They were warned, and
We
did
provoked
nothing.
him. Yes. Yeah.
And did nothing. And so my thought is, you know, yeah, you have the whole thing with the FBI warning the CIA. The CIA did nothing. And then he, like you said, was an operative. Of course they did nothing.
Yep. Right.
Okay. Of course they didn't heed to the warning.
Because they would have been found
Exposed.
out. They would have been exposed.
100%. So, you know, this is where I think the American people demand answers, and they deserve answers at this point.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're talking about 9/11. Doesn't matter if you're talking about JFK. Doesn't matter if you're talking about Ukraine and Russia. Doesn't matter if you're talking about the children and what's going on. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the border. Like, the American people demand answers and should be rewarded those answers, guys. You know, what are your kind of closing remarks here?
Go ahead. All right. Well, I agree with what you just said, Pastor Matt. The people deserve answers, and I love that we're in a season right now where people are starting to understand the importance of them being engaged and understanding and getting educated about what's going on in their government, and are starting to demand those answers. And so I love that, you know, people are starting to see and understand that their voice can have power, that they can go to their elected officials and say, and write them a letter or walk in their office and say, hey, I've got questions about this, you know, and can you give me some answers about it? Because I want to know, and start holding some of those elected officials accountable. So I feel encouraged, because I do feel like there are quite a few people that are starting to actually take that next step of engagement and really start to demand answers. And I think a perfect example of that we're seeing too is the support of people behind Doge and Elon Musk. Because I think, again, it's coming out. All of that truth is finally coming out, and so it's even making it even more real for people to understand.
Boy, were Democrats mad when Trump brought that up the joint of Congress, about Doge. That was crazy. But yeah, I mean, Democrats didn't have much to cheer about that night, to be really honest with you.
Nor should they.
Nor should they. Except when it's to honor people who literally lost their lives.
Right.
And it's like, you would think they would honor, but you know, they've had their hand in the cookie jar, opening the borders to kill these people anyway. So, you know, they don't want to tattle on themselves.
Yeah, you're right.
You know?
I think right now what we've got a lot of is like fervor and passion. I think we've got that. We've got people who are actively wanting more, wanting answers, wanting justice, real justice, not, you know, abbreviated justice. But I think the thing that we need to concentrate now on, not only as conservatives, but especially in the body of Christ, is discipline and longevity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Endurance
That's
is
good.
is the next
Sure.
thing, because we can burn incredibly bright right now,
Yeah.
but if we don't keep the fire going, it's not going to last us all winter, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got to be able to keep this going when JD Vance is the president next. But like you got to keep it. You got to keep that momentum going, because Trump can't fix everything in 4 years.
Right.
He's going to fix a lot. What can God do in a day, right? Pastor's prophecies. But when he's out, they're going to try again. Right? And then so we've got to keep this fervor, this passion that we've got now. We've got to keep that into the next presidency, because good times produce soft men produce hard times produce strong men produce good times.
Yeah.
We've got to stay good men all the way through, right? And teach the next generation how to be good men even in good times.
Yep. I agree. I think you nailed it. We can talk about the high level things about President Trump and Vice President JD Vance, and maybe, I don't know, one day he'll be in the head, but we'll see. And we need to pray for them. That's actually our duty and our obligation as Christians. We're supposed to pray for our spiritual leaders as well as our natural leaders. But the biggest change that we can make, guys, is at home. Moms, dads, it's time to become parents. It's time to stop prioritizing our careers, stop prioritizing our ambitions, and start teaching our children values that are long lasting. Our passion needs to burn for the next generation. And I believe that's where the greatest change is going to happen. That, with obviously first and foremost, the teaching of biblical principles, biblical morality, the invitation of the Holy Spirit, and speaking through and praying through the Spirit. Those two things are going to, in my opinion, be the most crucial things that determine whether this is short term, as you said, Jacob, or if this is everlasting, as God has desired in his heart to make happen. But it starts at home. We have got to get back to valuing and honor thy father and thy mother. And not just from a sense of listen to your parents, but honoring the sanctity of traditional marriage, honoring the sanctity of marriage as an institution and a covenant, to stick it through, to make sure your marriage is good, to invest in your marriage, and teaching the honor principle of honoring those in authority. It all starts at home. I think once we bring back honoring thy father and thy mother, obviously honoring the Lord God as your only God to serve is first and foremost, but right underneath that, honoring your father and your mother, honoring those parents, celebrating parenthood, celebrating traditional marriage, celebrating having kids again. That's when I think things will make the lasting impact and change.
Yeah, that's so good. And I'm in agreement with all of that. I want to encourage everybody watching. If this has helped you today, share it with those that you're friends with, your family. Share it on your platforms, your social media, wherever you're watching. Let us know. Like, comment, subscribe. Go to our YouTube page and subscribe. Primetime Game Changers. You can follow us on Primetime Game Changers on Instagram, Facebook. We're all over the place.
Yep.
Go to our website, primetimegamechangers.com. If they could put that shop up one more time, we want you guys to plug in with our merchandise around the world. And, we really would love you guys to check out our stuff. And we're going to be releasing more stuff. Show them the female stuff too, real quick. If we could pull that up. Yeah, right there. You got the shorts, that kind of teal hat and pink hat right there. And then, there's some unisex stuff that we have, I think, down there with that t-shirt hoodie.
Yep. If you scroll down
as well. We do have some tank tops that we've produced as well for the females that we're going to put on the website. We have those in stock as well. So we're going to start putting a lot more out there for you guys. We do have women's breast cancer legend tea. That is a shout out to Deanna Favre, the wife of Brett Favre. Brett was on our show back in August, so we did a little shout out partnership with them, and we're going to send proceeds for those shirts to them as well. So guys, we want you to just get involved. There's also on pray.com a donate button. If you are blessed by Game Changers, you can do a donation, a give button on pray.com, and then also I believe our push pay as well. Another
Yep. So for those who don't know, we are affiliated and birthed out of Lord of Hosts Church here in Omaha, Nebraska. That is our home church. Shout out to pastors Hank and Brenda Kuhneman. They are, well, they're Matt's parents, but they're also my spiritual parents, and they've really championed Game Changers. But you can go to lohchurch.org/give, or maybe it's /donate. It's one of the two. Someone's got it up there. Okay, they've got it up there. You'll see it. And if you click in the drop down, you've got push pay, PayPal, any one of those sections. There's a drop down. If you can just show that real quick, that's just on our main one. There is a section that says, yes, there's a donation fund that says Game Changers. So if you're blessed by the content that we're sharing, if you guys love the fact that we're infiltrating and equipping the next generation, and you want to be a part of that, then feel free. Make sure to donate. That's what helps us continue to keep things going. That's what helps us to continue to literally keep the lights on, so we can keep imparting into this generation for Jesus. Amen.
Yep. And if you go to our website, primetimegamechangers.com, you can also contact us on there. There's also an email where if you have suggestions about merchandise, need to talk to customer service about the merchandise and sizing, different things like that before buying, need to return an item, we got all that covered for you. So if they could even show that over in the shop area, there should be a contact as well where you guys can go ahead and contact us, make sure you're good, change the game at primetimegamechangers.com. And then also, I think if they need to contact for
the store, they're on the shop site, there's actually a contact tab on the shop store that goes directly to the Game Changers store email. So if you click that contact button, right there, we've got our contact info. Obviously, you guys can DM us on our Instagram account or Facebook account. We'll answer there too. But if you want to send us a message on the contact us form, just fill that out, and we'll have a representative get in contact with you guys and just make sure we respond.
And it would be awesome too if you guys even have ideas on some merchandise you'd like us to produce. I don't care what it is. We have the means to do it. It could be baby clothes. It could be, coffee cups. It could be something seasonal. I mean, really whatever, car decals, magnets. I mean, whatever it is you want, in-home decor, something along those lines. I mean, whatever it is, clothing, you name it, we will produce that, for you guys. And we're going to work on just adding more stuff to the website, and you guys can even buy things out of season too if you want. I know we have a bunch of female winter knit caps and male knit caps as well, like beanies and stuff. So we want to put those out. I know some of you that live in places like Nebraska or the Midwest, it's bipolar weather where it'll be 20 degrees one day and then 60 something the next. So you might still want to have the winter clothing available and not put away in the out of season closet of your home. So we want to partner with you guys. We appreciate you partner with us. Rep that merchandise wherever you're at. We appreciate your time, your viewership. Like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget that. Like, comment, and subscribe. Primetime Game Changers on every platform is the username and the name to connect with us. And we really appreciate you guys. Well, that's all for today. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week, Friday, 11:30 Central Time, live on Primetime Game Changers. Bye-bye.